Filling up your lungs with cleansing breath, holding that, just letting it out with a sigh or exhale. If that felt okay, I invite you to do a couple of more, just breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in one more deep breath, filling up your lungs, filling up your abdomen if you can get it down there, holding at the top, and maybe sighing, humming out. Yeah, inviting yourself to arrive fully. You can just let the breath do what it needs to do. And your eyes might decide to stay open, staring out at something, maybe at the window or in your room, the soft gaze. Or you might close your eyes. Your choice. And just allowing yourself to tune in to your practice at this end of your day or wherever you are in time. And notice what you notice. And as the body lands and comes to rest in this moment, how's it to feel the body arriving? It can be arriving with crunchiness, it can be arriving with exhaustion, it can be arriving with a lot of energy, foggy, heavy, light, under the weather. See if you can grant yourself the grace to arrive exactly as you are, just permission to be. And as you settle into this moment, breath by breath, moment by moment, just notice if there's a place that you can bring your attention back to over and over to help you kind of return. That might be the breath for many of us. We might be able to access that inhale or exhale, and might be a place of ease, some place of neutrality, or even something pleasant. And if breath isn't available as easily, you might see if there's a place you're connecting the body with the earth. Your feet on the ground, or sits bones heavy, back supported, or uprightedness of the spine. Your hands just resting wherever they are, on your lap. And then if the body is not as accessible right now, you might just tune in to this field of sound, letting sounds arrive at the ears. Any sound in the distance, sound nearby, hearing what you hear. Whether it's breath, body sensation, or sound, or even your visual field where you're resting your attention somewhere visually is a place to keep coming back. Might be supportive to start to practice with this anchoring, this stabilizing, just bringing yourself back to this chosen place. You might have one or two places for a moment, and that's fine. Maybe it's the breath and body. Maybe you notice that you're aware of it all. And so just giving permission for that to be as natural, not tight or forced. And whatever the mind's doing, if there's thoughts, other things coming to you, notice yourself kind of off the path of this chosen point of anchor or attention, the breath, the sensation or sound. Just see how gently you can bring yourself back there. Okay, we're going to keep doing this a little bit. Gently retraining, inviting in, inviting your attention to stay steady on something. Giving yourself this grace to arrive, letting all the parts of you, however you are arriving, come to meet this moment, meeting it with this open awareness. And where you can, just orienting to the sense of where is it easy? Where can I find some degree of space or ease in my experience? Knowing that that can be a way in to this moment. It could be the simplicity of just coming back to the breath. It could be maybe the support that you feel right now held up by the ground or the chair cushion. Might be this next breath. You can soften the body, you can also soften the mind. You can check out, how's the attitude of my attention right now? How am I viewing my experience? Is there any judgment or tension or stress I'm bringing? And if that's there, is it possible to offer myself some space in how I'm being with this experience? In this way, we can use our awareness, this compassionate awareness, to befriend ourselves. Hey, how am I doing? It's okay just to be as I am. You can call on the part of you that's a beloved friend, even if there's other parts of you, other parts of your day that are coming through. And if the mind is doing its thing, maybe straying from one thought to another point of awareness, befriending that too. Oh, mind, you're doing what you're doing. Let's let's come into this place to rest our attention, maybe just for the next few moments. And if you'd like, you can, if you feel kind of collected, your attention feels settled in some way, you can let go of this anchor even. It's an opportunity of choice. For some, it might be helpful to keep coming back to the breath, sound, body. It's always there. And for some, we might let it be more in the background and just notice what else is in our awareness. If there are any feelings that I'm carrying with me. And we don't have to direct traffic, we don't have to direct where we're going. Can we welcome it? Can we greet it? Can we note it? And if you notice it's a lot, there's like a flood or it's racing or so much that makes it overwhelming, I invite you to come back to just the simplicity of this next breath, of this next place where you feel your feet on the ground. Keep it simple. And sometimes if it feels overwhelming, there's a lot happening in the body, you can just, you don't have to be fully still for everything. You might find that maybe rocking is helpful for a moment. Maybe even just gently tapping your hands, your feet, fingers on your legs is helpful, just to remind you, oh yeah, I'm here. Just welcoming that grounding sensation for a few moments. So that's a choice too. And so can notice what's happening in your experience as is arising, and can you meet it with this attitude of friendliness, where there's some level of curiosity, like what's happening? What's going on? How have you been? Even if it's a difficult sensation, a difficult thought, feeling, giving yourself the grace to let yourself gently know this experience, to understand what's difficult, to get underneath the feeling of that difficulty. What's the sensation in the difficulty? Is there tension? Where is that tension? Not to get rid of it, not to make it better, but just to get to know it, to be intimate with our suffering if it's there. And you can be curious. Oh, if there is a moment of struggle or suffering, what's this need right now? And if it's a moment of ease or even something pleasant, oh, let me linger. Let me soak up the goodness of this recognition. Where do I feel that in my body? Acknowledging the conditions that brought that sense of ease or joy. And you can always come back to this breath, to the feeling right below you, the feet, the earth, to the sound. We can know that intimately as well. Maybe there's a neutrality there or something really pleasant. We can feel the goodness of our breath, of the comfort of gravity and that pull. And wherever you are in your practice, just taking a moment, kind of visualize this friendliness. You might invite you to put a hand on your heart, or maybe if it feels good, connect with your body in some way. And just maybe offer a bit of thanks and gratitude for taking this time, however this practice has been. Just, yeah, thanks for showing up. Taking that into yourself, the goodness of this moment, and any well wishes. May I know ease. May I know health and well being. May I know happiness and the conditions of happiness for me. May I know freedom, freedom from suffering, and freedom from the causes of suffering. Feeling ourselves in response to that, those well wishes of metta, loving kindness. Might include anyone else on the screen that's we know that's a part of our community, sending them some good wishes. May we all have conditions of happiness and no ease, well-being, and health. May we all be free of suffering and its causes. And when you're ready, just taking the time you need, letting go of any thoughts. You're letting yourself wiggle, let your eyes, if they've been closed, to slowly just track around the space around you again. Might bring your hands together for breath or bow if you'd like. You're welcome to. Thank you for your practice. I've been reflecting a bit lately on um, a couple ways to meet this time. I'll try to integrate this experience um, that I've had and just see if it's how it's of use here. So hopefully whatever I have to share is of some benefit and some use for you. And take what supports you and leave the rest, please. Um, and so what's coming to me, and as I was reflecting on our time for this Dharma, was about a week and a half ago now, maybe actually just a little over a week ago, one of my close friends um, let me know and let us know we're in a men's group together, um, that he was diagnosed with cancer. And he just learned a few days prior. Him and his family are still integrating that information. Um, Fortunately, found out that it's not, so far, it doesn't look like there's a spread of anything. It's colon cancer. It's pretty, you know, I think any form of diagnosis of cancer is pretty vulnerable, but it's also a pretty good vulnerable place. And for me, I had to reflect on this is, the first time in my life that a close friend um, has, you know, announced like they're having to go through something like this, and being really intimately tied into his life as a part of a support system that we've been a part of for over 16, 17 years. It really, um, it took me a while to come into the reality of what's what's this diagnosis mean for him. And then as I kind of like reflected on what it means for him and got to hear that from him a bit, um, there's this beautiful way in which, we can say this particular sangha that I'm a part of, that has been together for this many, almost nearly 2 decades now, um, where we showed up for him and circled around him and his wife, and really kind of held them through this kind of period of this tender, vulnerable moment of reality, of really coming to um, reckon with, like, okay, what do we know, what do we not know, all the uncertainty behind it, still so early, all of the pain points of just the process in the medical system so far, the graces that have followed. And what I was touched by was a couple of things, two things I feel, at this stage, I'm taking in. The first was, one, the immediate instinct of course, each of us in our community, this a sense of like, we got you. Whatever's going on, whatever you're going to go through, we're going with you. We're going through this together. And it was quite striking to feel that. It was such a immediate, compassionate response of the heart to suffering, right? here's his friend pronouncing in such a vulnerable way this really acute moment of reality that's turned his world upside down in a particular way, right? And the first instinct for all of us in some way or another was like, we got you, we see you, we hold you with a lot of love, and then we're all with this. Like, this is like, in a way, this like beautiful collectivism that can show up. That's like an antidote to the kind of type of hyper individualization. Like, like we have to go through things on our own, that we're suffering on our own. It's just like immediately this sense that we're all in this. It's like when he pronounced that diagnosis, even though while he carries the kind of the acute situation so intimately and vulnerably that he has to journey through in a particular way that's his to do. It's like, as this close-knit group of friends, like we also take that on, we also share in a way. I don't want to say a collective diagnosis, but like we're also taking on that dis-ease. And I think of that in a beautiful way of in the Tibetan practices. I've been reflecting in Vajrayana, it's Tibetan and Indian Vajrayana. There's this frame of Tonglen. And Tonglen is a framework that, where we consciously turn towards suffering in our worlds and the world around us to bring it intimately into our hearts, visually, imaginally, as a place to be transformed in our own compassionate being, our own ability, this tremendous capacity that we're turning and having kind of a really radical faith towards, that we are able to hold the reality of suffering that's happening and feeling the possibility of it, touching us, and then also being transformed. It's kind of like translates Tonglen in a basic way is a giving and receiving. So it's like receiving suffering and giving the medicine of transformation in a way. You can say that giving the antidote. And it's not to say there's like this, I don't want to present this in some kind of context of like some magical thinking, perhaps, that it's just we're gonna just make everything better in some way. I do hold a strong whole power of prayer and power of thoughts and intentions has a very unimaginable impact on the conditions of our life and others. But this is a little bit of a separate way of looking at, I think, this compassionate activity that our heart naturally can give rise to, right? And it's touching into something that's much larger than our sense of self. So the idea here is that in a way that we all have this like wide, vast reservoir of compassion. And maybe this in your own heart when someone around you or close one, maybe not even a close person, maybe you've seen something in the media when you're seeing all the all the points of suffering that are happening, that sometimes you notice how in a compassionate period you can feel like, oh, this is happening to me too. I feel this pain. It's not just a pain over there. This is a suffering that I can intimately touch and be touched by. When some of these students have been detained by ICE, right? When, it's like, oh, like I can feel that. Like the fabric of, our collective community is affected in that. It's not separate, right? And so like we're already tapping into this like vast pool of this like compassionate response. We don't have to like practice or do something with it. It's naturally there, available to most of us at times. It doesn't mean that we won't get overwhelmed. We have to face all of that as well. And so I love that quality exists, and that there's a framework within these traditions that's like, we can turn to our suffering. We can actually be with ours and others. And actually there's a deep medicine in being able to do that actively, like through this Tonglen practice, that we actually, as we build the capacity to interface with the suffering around us, right? That we can then condition compassion to come online even more. And of course, we can include ourselves in that. It's not just out there. And so that was like one pieces that stood out to me. This compassionate activity, this compassionate response that's available. It's tremendous. And the second one was like right next to it, right? It's intimately connected. And it's pointed to in this like collectivist attitude that we're not alone. We don't have to be alone in our suffering. We don't have to leave others alone in their suffering. We don't have to like, in a trauma response, a nervous system that's marked by trauma, often one of the thoughts that might appear or show up in the individual is that I'm alone, I'm separate, I'm disconnected, either by shame, by not worthy, by inability to feel connected, right? So a trauma disrupts that normal kind of sense of kind of social empathy by potentially narrowing or constricting our view, right? And so kind of, especially if we're in a survival response, like we may not be able to feel outside of our sense of self, right? And you can see that on a collective level when we're like inundated by a lot of fear and a lot of like different things that are like fires burning around us. You can notice, right? Like it can feel overwhelming. We might feel like, oh, I'm just grappling with my own reality. It's so hard to like tune in. And so like I might notice in my own self where I've been induced in these times by some sense of separation, right? It's like the fear response has us like closed down. It feels like, oh, the walls are around and no one's around. And we're all, there's like a degree of maybe despair or hopelessness that I've had to deal with. And what was tremendous in this experience with my friend, just as a mark, one, whatever is happening in my world, whatever point of reality, it got reprioritized real quick when this type of big announcement happened, right? So like my world got expanded immediately to include a different prioritization, as I imagined his might have when he, whatever he was stressing out about the week before no longer had the same register anymore, right? So it expands our view. Like suffering can expand our view. The other part was when we're not, one way that disrupt that trauma response, and what do we do and build our practices out of, especially here with Dharma homies, when we have this trauma informed way of like re-engaging our safety, our sense of resourcing, coming back online to our capacity to connect, was seeing how immediately that in that we're all in this together, brother. You're not alone. Like it emboldened this sense of connectivity of our bonds. It visibilized to me what I would, what we call within the Buddhist tradition like Kalyanamitra, right? Spiritual friendship or radical friendship. This kind of friendship, like I'm in the fire with you. We're gonna do this together, right? I just read a bit of Harry's newsletter, reflections on solidarity. If you haven't read it, please, just check it out. It's like, solidarity points to that same attitude. Like we're in this together. And so Kalyanamitra is like this, like, who are those in our circle, in our community? If it's maybe some of us on our screen together, maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's our family. Who are our spiritual community? Who are our radical folks that we are kind of in it with? And we, it behooves us to start to orient towards each other with that attitude, because in times of crisis and suffering, that sense of connection for some of us might atrophy and we might feel dramatically disconnected. And so we have to shore up or build up. I know as we were going through COVID, a lot of that social connectivity at times for me felt really fumbling when we were in isolation mode. And I couldn't really reach out. And I felt like, you know, really contracted in that. And it took a while. It's still taking some time to recover that sense of, oh, yeah, my connections with others are available. And they don't have to be like a vast amount of connections. It could be one or two intimate people in our lives. But when I was able to see, these visible bonds of friendship, that we were all like, we're here, and each of us offered both loving reflections, empathetic statements, but also like, like hopeful visions of what's possible. So like, it's a spiritual friend when someone can hold your suffering with that kind of care, and also this way of like, even in a time when you can't always know if there's a way out, we can help we can borrow people's hope, we can borrow people's capacity to see something broader, not again from this magical thinking of bypassing the difficulty or making it pretend that it's not, like, this is dramatic, this is hard, and we're going to go through this journey. I see you on the other side of this, right? And I think that's part of the medicine that I'm really, I'm inside of right now, with the communities I get to be inside of, with this group of friends that I'm talking about, with us, what we're doing with Dharma homies and building up our Sangha and our morning mindfulness practices, right? We get that from each other, just showing up. Sometimes just showing up and knowing that the other is there, right? And the last bit, which I want to pause after this to turn it to you all a little bit more with some reflections or any questions that might come up, is, and my friend modeled this so beautifully, and also I think we all modeled this in a way, and this is a much deeper conversation that I can kind of cover in these next minutes, but is that when he was inundated by this diagnosis, that I'm sure, again, it's like a wavy ride, so there's no static state that I'm imagine he's going to stay in for a while, because it's a day-to-day changing climate, that there was a commitment to see this more than just this like diagnosis, this thing of that's been handed down to him, is like, here's what's wrong, or here's what the prognosis is, right? He's like, he endeavors, he's saying like, I'm committed to see what I can learn through this, through a spiritual door, through a psychological door. Like, what's here to learn inside of how I'm supposed to be in my life right now, in terms of prioritizing aspects of my health, prioritizing how I show up and do, you know, take care of some parts of, my mental health and well-being, my physical health, my ways of being in connection, right? The attitude I saw in that is like turning to that suffering intimately can also engender this sense of like, what's here to teach me? What can I learn? What can I harvest here? Like, what's the training ground that the suffering is offering me? And again, sometimes when we're in the thick of it, that's not the reality that we're going to be able to come in, and we need to borrow that hope and perspective from a wise friend around us, from a wise person that we can entrust, right? Because maybe we can't see it. Sometimes we get that wise view from a therapist, right? Maybe you get that wise view from something inspirational in the media or a movie or a book. It doesn't matter where that view comes in, but at some point, I think being able to take that in, that this like this pivoting attitude of being able to shift from like this thing that's, I'm marked by challenge, or it's not an obstacle, right? This thing that's coming towards me in my life, and this could be whatever state that any one of us are in, that's your own struggle. I kind of deem this, my relationship to this, like, trust your struggle. Trust the struggle that's been handed to you. That comes from this artist collective, by the way, that's based out of like Bay in LA, visual artists. Trust your struggle. But this, like, the sense of like, what we got in front of us, whatever our challenge is, that's our curriculum, one of my teachers says. That's what you're coming here to learn how to grow through. It's going to help you grow. It's not to make it all painted by, positivity or anything. It's like, it's still the struggle, but it's like, can we trust it? instead of putting more resistance to it, instead of fighting with it. What is it like? Befriend this. Just like I befriended my breath, or befriend this point of pain. Yeah. Trusting your struggle. Calling on wise friends. Being able to broaden our field of self in moments of suffering. And being able to trust this compassionate response, this compassionate activity that we have, this, it's like in some traditions, like this compassionate Buddha is an archetype of the cosmos. It's like this energy, right, that we can turn to. That's like, it's part of the, like the blueprints of how the universe was created is one way I understand it, right? It's like that's a function of how the universe moves. Just like there's a holy anger and rage, and there's holy grief. It's like compassion is one way, and we can like tap that state just by tuning in, making someone else's suffering like, yeah, your struggle is my struggle, right? To not separate ourselves by that, to limit ourselves and be so narrowed. So those are my reflection points for us for today.
That's what's up right there.